All right, what's going on, guys? It's Andrew here with Fast Cars, Fast Money, and we're talking about Kansas today. Kansas has arguably become one of the best tracks on the schedule. A lot of racing, a lot of different lanes, very racy. So hopefully we get that type of race today. But it's a 1.5 intermediate style track. We have 8 different Kansas races for a sample size in the next gen era. Of course, we can always look at practice in qualifying and recent form as well too. So when we get to the driver by driver breakdown here, we got Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and William Byron up here in the expensive range. Now, for me, out of the drivers up here, my favorite two are going to be Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell. So Hamlin starts second. He's $1,500 more than Tyler Reddick, who we'll get to. But Hamlin has a really good chance to be a lap leader. I think you can play him by himself. I think you can pair him with Reddick. Um, but everything is saying that Hamlin should be strong today. In 8 races here, he has 7 top 10s, 6 top 5s, and a win. He likely will be a little bit lower owned than Reddick too, but really like Denny Hamlin. It's hard not to like him today. Another guy that I like a lot is going to be Christopher Bell. So very similar to Hamlin, Bell also has 7 top 10 finishes in 8 races here, which is very strong. He also gives you some place differential upside, which, Hamlins and Reddicks don't really have the place differential upside, but they're lap leading, the path to leading laps is a lot easier for them too, because Bell, starts further in the field. So, Bell also looked really good in practice, which is encouraging. He actually was P1 in the 25 and the 30 lap averages in practice. Um, when you get to Larson, he's the only driver in the field with multiple, next gen wins at Kansas, which is encouraging. However, I'm still a little bit more of a tournament play on him. I'd rather play the Toyotas. Chevys are good. They just haven't looked as dominant as we've seen them in previous years. So as they are still trying to figure out this new body style, I think for DFS purposes, I'm going to lean a majority of my ownership on the Toyotas. It's going to be kind of the same thing with Ryan Blaney. So, you can't really get to all these guys up here. I think Blaney will be fast, but I would say he's a little bit more of a tournament play. He does have 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s in 8 Kansas races, which is okay, but it's not as good as a lot of the other drivers he's priced around. He also didn't just really have the pace that the other guys did in practice. Um, Byron's interesting. His car got better as practice, at least the laps went on in practice. But like we said with Larson, he's still trying to figure out the car a little bit. He does gives you the most amount of place differential upside of any of these drivers up here. He also ran the O'Reilly race yesterday, so he has some extra laps on this track, which is, always helpful. Um, he does have 4 top 10s and 2 top 5s over 8 races here. So I don't not like Larson, Blaney, and Byron, but I just think Hamlin and Bell just project so much higher. So most of my ownership is going to be going to those two guys. When we get down to the 9K range, we now have Briscoe, Reddick, Gibbs, and Elliott. Most of my ownership is going to go to Tyler Reddick. So Reddick was top 2 across all the practice metrics. He starts on the pole, fast car, good chance to be a lap leader. He's off to a career year. He has a win here. Like, there's nothing really that's telling you not to play Reddick besides the fact that he's going to be so highly owned. So if he has some issue happen to him in tournaments, if you don't have him in your line, that's a really good way to leapfrog a lot of lines. But if things go the way that they should today, Tyler Reddick should be a slam dunk play. He should score a lot of points. And only for $9,500, like I said, he's $1,500 cheaper than Denny Hamlin. So you can play Reddick by himself. You could pair him with Hamlin, but if you don't pair him with Hamlin, it really opens up some salary relief to get to some other drivers. Um, with everyone talking about Reddick and Hamlin, who are some maybe contrarian lap leaders that will not see the ownership? I think you can look at the Toyota teammates. I think you can look at Chase Briscoe and Ty Gibbs. Again, both of them are a little bit more of a tournament options, but Toyota in general looked very strong in practice. They qualified very good. Kansas has a very wide track. The restarts are going to be crazy. You never know. If one of these guys can get out front in clean air, there's nothing that's preventing them from leading a bulk laps and getting them at relatively low ownership. So more tournament plays. Chase Elliott, I think, is interesting as well too. He has strong Kansas numbers, 1 win, 2 top 5s, and 5 top 10s in 8 races. I think he's a nice pivot option off of Byron. Get him for $1,000 less. They start right next to each other. Again, gives you some little bit of place differential upside and some salary relief. Logano's a guy I'm just really not getting to. Didn't really look that good in practice. And when you don't look good in practice in the next gen cars, it's really hard to adjust those cars to run a lot better in the race. Also, he has an average finisher 15th over those 8 races, and that's where he starts. So just would rather go to some other guys, one of those guys being Bubba Wallace. So Bubba Wallace has a win at Kansas. He has 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s in 8 races. He was top 5 in the practice, averages actually being fastest in the 10 lap average. Really good value for $8,500 for a driver that starts 10th and was showing a ton of speed. Um, we're all over the Toyotas this weekend, but who's maybe one guy that isn't in a Toyota that I think you should look at? It's going to be Chris Buescher. So high interest is more of tournament high interest, I would say, maybe medium high. But like I said, he was the fastest car who isn't in a Toyota, more of a tournament play starting 7th for sure. But he was top 5 in all the practice, averages for every single metric. I don't really think that many people are going to play him. So again, when you look at who could be a contrarian lap leader, a guy that can earn you some fast laps, contend for a top 5, then Chris Buescher makes a lot of sense. Um, a guy that I think will be high owned that I am concerned about is Ross Chastain. So he has great track history. Everything, if you look at track history, says yes, you must play Ross. He has a win, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s in 8 races, average finish of 10th, starting 31st. Like that's going to be a really, really good play. However, if we look at Trackhouse this year, his recent form says he will be, below average in terms of what he's done in the past. So I still think he's a good cash games play, but for $8,100, there's some guys cheaper, the Cindrics, the Berries, the Heims, the Ziliches, a little bit cheaper on the slate to give you some place differential upside. I also think a lot of people are going to play Chastain. So, he's going to get a lot of ownership too. And I'm concerned he might stall out and finish like 23rd or 22nd today, which won't really do it for us. So I'd rather pivot to Brad Keselowski. Practice wasn't great, but if we look at how he ran at Darlington this year, he was pretty strong. He also had a top 10 finish at Vegas. I don't think he's going to get the ownership that Chastain does, so I really like that for a pivot play off of the Chastain chalk. Hocevar, maybe you could make the same argument for him as Chris Buescher, but Buescher just looked a lot better in practice. So I'd rather lean on Buescher for tournament plays. Hocevar, I don't really know. We haven't really seen him get out front and lead a lot of laps. Bowman, another guy I don't really know what to do with. In 7 races, Bowman has finished top 10 in 6 of them. So that is extremely strong, especially for a driver for $7,600 starting 33rd. However, more often than not this year, the times that he's been in the car, Bowman has not been a great DFS play for us, to say the least. We went to him last week at Bristol. Obviously, had some issues, did not finish that race. But he starts very deep in the field today. He was pretty good in practice, so I think we can take a chance on him again. It's hard for him not to score points. Ryan Preece, not really going to get to, just not a really lot of upside. Kyle Busch, kind of the same thing every single week. We just don't really want to play these RCR cars. Cindric and Barry are starting deep in the field. They give you some place differential upside. The speed wasn't great, but you don't really need them to be that fast starting this deep in the field. I think Heim is interesting for tournaments. He's not really in these cup cars that regularly, so typically we don't really see them running off good. I should say he's the 4th car in the fleet because we know that Riley Herbst is in the field too. But the 23XR or 23XI cars were pretty fast. Maybe that helps Heim. Zilich, Trackhouse cars have been pretty bad, but he starts so deep in the field. He basically starts on the last row. He basically starts last. Hard for him not to score you points. The question is, how far forward can he really go? Suarez, kind of the same thing as Hocevar. Really good qualifying effort, but from a DFS standpoint, I don't really see how much further forward he can go. I think he's going to drop back a little bit too, which is a concern. Eric Jones, I think, starts around or runs around where he starts. Um, Zane Smith, I don't mind him for tournaments. He does start in the second half of the field, but he had top 20 times in practice, suggesting he should be able to move forward and gives us some place differential upside. I don't really think that many people will play him either. SVG and McDowell just kind of start around where I think their ceilings are. AJ Allmendinger, the colleague cars haven't been that good either, which is a concern, but he did look decent in practice. He was top 10 in the 5 lap average, which is encouraging, but recent form is a concern. So, he's in the player pool. I'm going to have some ownership to him, but I'm going to have a lot more ownership to John Hunter Nemechek. Good place differential option, starts deep in the field, very affordable, easy to fit in lines. His practice times were a lot better than where he starts. Should be popular, but again, hard for him not to score you points today. Gillen, Dillon were just slow. Stenhouse starts a little bit too far forward for me. Feels a little uncomfortable giving Noah Gregson high interest, I will admit, but he ran very well last week, which was encouraging. His Kansas numbers are actually pretty strong too for where for who he is priced around. He's an 18th place average finish in 7 Kansas races, pretty good in practice, starting 28th for only $5,400. I will definitely have some Gregson ownership today. Herbst is another guy that I think makes sense in tournaments. Same thing we said with Corey Heim. These 2311 cars are very fast. Um, they're fast, right? So the finishing potential is a lot higher than most of the other guys down here. And then Custer, Dillon, and Ware were just too slow. So that's going to do it. I know this video is coming out a little bit later. Appreciate the patience with everyone. Life has just been a whirlwind to say the least, in a good way. But hopefully this has been helpful. If it has, dropping a like on the video, a comment, hitting the subscribe button. This is always greatly appreciated. I hope you guys enjoy the race today. Good luck. And if you want access to the spreadsheet, it's over on X. It's at FastCarsFM. Otherwise, enjoy your Kansas race, and we will catch you next weekend.